Hey guys, we are Brian and Liz Klanck. We have two kids. Our daughter Bevan is 8, our son Oliver is 7, and we are missionaries to Cambodia. So we're currently on day 1 of a 14-day quarantine. We just got back to the country yesterday, and so we are so thankful and grateful that we are able to get back to Cambodia, because there's a lot of our friends that can't get back to their countries. So we are so thankful. And we kind of have similar backgrounds. We both grew up in small country churches, and that was it. We just kind of went to church, but neither one of us really knew what it was to have a personal relationship with Jesus. And so we both kind of fell away from the church and pursuing that. But eventually we, thankfully God, put people in our paths, and we really found, churches and people that really poured into us and helped us grow deeper and really establish that relationship. And so God called us to missions in early 2016. And so we had been married for about 9 years at that time. And our kids were pretty young. I think Bevan was almost 4, and Oliver was like 2.5. 2.5. And so we were just living life. We had just moved closer to our church because we were super connected, serving a lot, and we just wanted to be closer. We lived about 30 miles away at the time, and so we had just moved, just renovated a house. We kind of thought like we had it all. This was like going to be our forever home, and we were living life and loving life. And one church service totally changed our life. We walked into church and came out completely different people. And so our missions pastor was, talking about the Great Commission, and we were on board with that. We were supporting missionaries at the time, and we'd both been on a couple short-term missions trips. You'd been to South America, to Peru. I'd been to Ethiopia. And so we thought, we would just be doing short-term missions trips, and that's what we thought life looked like for us. And during that church service, God began to tell me, "You're not going to send, you're going to go." And I was like freaking out a little bit. I was having Moses moments, like in my head, like arguing with God, telling him all the reasons why, not me, not us. And he just kept telling me, "You're not going to send, you're going to go." And eventually he gave me a vision of our family, and the kids were still really young, somewhere in the world. I didn't know where it was, but I knew it was in America, and I knew through the vision that with our kids being young, that like he was telling us to like go now, like go sooner versus later. And so at the end of the service, our missions pastor asked, "If you would give a year or more of your life to missions, raise your hand." And my hand shot up, and I was like, oh man, I freaked out again. And service wrapped up, and I turned to Brian, and I was probably white as a ghost, and I was like, "I just raised my hand." And he said, "I did too." And I was like, no, because that means it's like, it's real. It's really real, because God confirmed, because he spoke to Brian too. And now you got to understand that God is awesome, and he knows how each of us are wired. And so that he knew that he needed to speak so clearly to me and tell me and show me. Like, it was pretty cut and dry. And for Brian, you kind of just really kind of like felt that, but didn't really hear God, but just kind of had this feeling of like, this is something we should do. And so I think that's the neat thing. God is just, he knows us so intimately and knows what we need and how we need to hear things. And so, because if you had asked us going into church, like if somebody was taking a random survey, like, "Hey, do you think you'd be a missionary?" Some people kind of have that adventure, which you do, but I totally did not. Like, I'm a planner. My plans have plans. Like, missions was not in any of my plans. And so we would have just said no. That's not how our future looked. And so coming out of that, like, we were just like, wow, God, really us? Like, are you sure? But we decided to just jump into that.
To run. Immediately after that church service and receiving prayer, we went home and we talked about, where in the world might this take us? Because we truly didn't know. We talked about South America, Europe, Africa, and started talking about what our lives could look like, and also how do we become missionaries, because we really had no idea at the time. The next morning I took Liz to the airport. She had a business trip out east. I went to my morning men's group and I explained to these guys, my friends, that, hey, look, we're supposed to go be missionaries somewhere in the world. We don't know how to do this. We don't know where we're supposed to go, but I'd love if we could pray about this morning. So that's exactly what we did. And on my way to work that morning, God gave me this vision of a dark world in an illuminated Cambodia. And it just, I got to the office that day and I was a commercial real estate brokerage. So I'm supposed to talk to people for a living. That's what I do, talk about buildings. And I couldn't do it that day. I was Googling all things Cambodia and how to become a missionary and missions organizations in Cambodia. So I got done searching and I was like, I have to pursue this further right now. So I got on the phone to leave a voicemail for our pastor and explain to him, if he had time today, I'd love to grab coffee. I need to unpack some things from the sermon at the previous weekend service. So we got together for coffee and I explained, Pastor Chris, I said, we're supposed to go be missionaries right now. And we don't know how to do this. So I need you to put me in a direction if you could. And he explained, wow, first of all, he wasn't expecting to have this conversation. He said, it's incredible. And he pointed us towards some mutual friends of ours that do a lot of short-term missions work around the world, and they're very connected. They know a lot of people in missions communities. So that's what we did. About a week and a half later, we had dinner with some good friends of ours, and they explained to us, if you guys are going to be missionaries, you should look at going with the organization we're with now, AGWM. And also, you should look up this gentleman by the name of Darth Lee in Cambodia. His story is incredible, frankly. It's no small miracle that he's alive today. He survived the killing fields in Cambodia here as a child. He spent 2 years in a labor camp, and when the Vietnamese invaded, he fled to Thailand and went to a UN refugee camp, all before the age of 11. Emigrated as a refugee to Minnesota, grew up there, and gave his life to Christ, and then came back to Cambodia, the country that has caused him so much pain in his life, and has been serving here faithfully for the last 25 years, and it's an incredible story. So I sent Darth an email, and I said, Darth, my name's Brian, and my family and I are supposed to go be missionaries in Cambodia, and we'd like to come and meet you and see your ministry, and if we all believe it's a fit and we pray about it, we'd love to come and serve with you long term. So 7 weeks later, Darth responded and he said, sure, come on out. So 7 weeks later, Liz and I are on a flight to Cambodia to see his ministry, to meet Darth and his wife Tita, and that trip changed the course of our life.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we just we came, we saw what Darth was doing, and I think we were both expecting like a God moment, like the heavens to open, the angels to sing, and just have like super clear confirmation. And we didn't have that the whole time, but we also didn't feel God had closed any doors that week we were here. So Darth invited us, like gave us the official invitation to come serve with him, and we kind of left like, okay, like we're doing this, I guess. But on that plane ride home, like the farther the plane got away from Cambodia, it's almost like God physically grew our hearts for this country and this people. And so that's when we knew, that God, this is what God had for us. And so we just ran after it. And we came here on our first term in November of 2017. So it took us, we were here about 18 months after God called us to missions. And we spent 2 years here, and we have just got back to Cambodia, like I was saying. We spent the last year in America, and so we're back here for 2 to 3 years, and we're so excited and thankful that this is what God has for us. And so we didn't think this is what our life would be like. So I guess that's just my encouragement to you, is just be open to what God wants for your life. It may look very different than the plans you have for yourself, but know this, that God's plans are always greater. They're always good, and they may seem crazy, and it may not seem like you're a fit for what God's asking you to do, but I promise you that if God is calling you to do something, even if it's scary or it seems unattainable, that like being in the center of God's will is where you need to be, because now, we can't imagine life any other way. And so I can't say we'll be doing missions forever, but we tell people that we'll be in Cambodia until God calls us to do something else. And so, we just pray a blessing over you guys. I know a lot of you guys are all dealing with, the world's dealing with COVID, but you're having to deal with, being distance learning, a lot of your activities being canceled, and so that's a bummer. But just know that God can still use this time, and so we just pray that you would just hold on to that and just lean into God and see what He has for you, even though your year isn't looking like what you thought it would. And so thank you for letting us share our story
Absolutely.
with you. And we just wanted to say thanks and say goodbye and hello from Cambodia.